Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. My name is Stephen D. Kelly. This is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. Once again, it's Thursday night. It is now September 5th, 2024. Thing I can tell you about this day. Nope. 6:01 p.m. Well, we've been having some interesting shows, and we've been focusing a lot on the Mafia and various things. And I told you last week that we were moving into a new direction of investigation, which is actually getting really large, and I'll get into that. But before I do, I need to talk about some current events because these are things that are, well, let's just say they're being used against us, I suppose you could say. But like last week, I'm going to start with talking a little bit about the war in Ukraine. You know, we're waiting for so many things to happen. We're waiting for Iran to take out Israel. We're waiting for all sorts of things. Obviously, we have this silly election coming. But one thing for sure I can tell you is that I don't think Russia's going to wait for someone new to be elected in the USA before they complete their mission, their special military operation. Now, I want to start out by talking about a missile strike that just happened here a couple days ago. I guess it was, not yesterday, but the day before, in a city called Poltava. And a facility was hit, which was being used as a school. It was a communications center, relatively large building. And supposedly, in this building, Western advisors, mercenaries, whatever, were there providing training in the use of the Swedish supplied AWACS system, which is an early warning aircraft, as well as teaching students how to fly drones in the drone warfare, soldiers. Now, this was hit by a missile, more than one, an Iskander, I believe it was. Iskander M, medium range, yeah. And why is that significant? Well, first of all, the Russians, they don't really say much, but the rumor was that at least 700 people died or were wounded in this attack, which is a significant number. Now, of course, here in the West, the Western media, they've downplayed that quite a bit. They've said that at least 41 people killed, many more injured, and quite a few more have yet to be recovered from under the rubble. So there's anyone's guess how many casualties there actually are. But this was a very demoralizing strike for the Ukrainians, for a lot of reasons, I'm sure. But one of the reasons I think that they were demoralized was that there was nothing they could do about it. Absolutely nothing they could do about it. There was no air defenses. Whatever scant air defenses that are left in that country, besides what they have protecting Kiev, such as it is, were sent into this Kursk offensive or folly that just is still in the process of taking place. So yeah, they squandered quite a few Patriot systems and whatever they had to try to cover their 10,000 man or something invasion of the Kursk region. Now that has pretty much failed. They haven't been ejected completely, but I think it's probably safe to say that at least 90% of the people that invaded are now casualties, dead or wounded. Not a good thing. Kind of like a final Hail Mary or a very desperate maneuver of a dying regime. It is dying. Now, one of the reasons why this attack on this training facility is significant, there's a couple reasons. For one, let's just say it used to take about 10 hours or more for the Russian aerospace forces to coordinate, target, prepare, and deliver an attack on a target using these Iskander hypersonic missiles. These are very large warhead missiles. Now, that has changed. And the reason why that has changed is because Russia is now producing so many of these missiles, huge quantities of these things, that they are now able to incorporate missile battalions into their frontline forces. In other words, the frontline forces don't have to locate a target and relay that information back to the aerospace forces that set up the attack and carry it out. Now, each one of the frontline forces, these groups that are fighting, have their own missile battalion on the front line, just the rear, to take out targets of opportunity, such as this particular training facility was. So what this means is that instead of taking 10 hours to launch a strike on a target once it's been identified, it now only takes 20 minutes. That's it. Basically, what that means is that there's very little that you can do once you've been identified, once a target has been identified by the massive amounts of surveillance that's going on over the battlefield. A precision attack will arrive within 20 minutes. That's hardly enough time to unload your vehicle and set it up before it's being destroyed. Well, what happened in this particular attack was that there was an air raid siren, there was a warning, and a significant number of people apparently in this facility that were in the facility at the time went into the bunker, the air raid shelter under the building. But when they emerged from the building to assess the damages, which were extensive, another missile struck. It was pretty nasty. Now, the entire building was destroyed. It's still standing, unlike the trade towers, the Twin Towers in New York, but you can see that there really isn't any living space in the building that wasn't affected by this explosion. So it's safe to say that anybody alive that was not in the bunker at the time of this second attack, or even the first, probably didn't make it. Well, you can understand why this is very discouraging. They say that the bulk of the casualties were from Sweden. And I'll tell you, there was a lot of females involved, a lot of female soldiers, female technicians, engineers, trainers, people that thought they'd be safe behind the lines, not in active combat. Diversity, equality, integration. Anyway, so that was a huge defeat. It was probably the most devastating missile attack or single target attack to cause the most devastating amount of casualties so far in this operation. Definitely hard to swallow. Of course, the West, there really isn't much they can do. These missiles will continue. The Russians own the skies. The entire country is being targeted any place, any time. There really won't be much left. And I know I've said this many times, but yeah, the front lines are crumbling and the troops are actively retreating. Sometimes not too organized. There are more cauldrons being formed. Significant areas in what's left of the Donbass that Ukraine still controls are being encircled. And the chaos of the retreat is causing substantial losses. So it won't be long. It won't be very much longer. And yet still we have people in this country saying, if only the U.S. had given more, if only we had done our part, if only we had taken all those M1 tanks and obsolete aircraft out there in those desert boneyards and just fixed them up, sent them to Ukraine, then that's all they would need. It'd be better than nothing. They could fight back. You know, they don't have the bombs. They don't have the shells. What good would it be to pull all kinds of M1 tanks, Abrams, out of mothballs to try to repair it? Who's going to repair it? What engineers are there being graduated from the schools that can repair that stuff? Who's going to pay for it? They don't even have the shells to load these things up, even if they were sent into battle. Same thing with the planes and the aircraft. What are they going to do? Take gutted planes, fill them up with modern avionics, and send them out to fight? No. You know, the Iranians unveiled a new tank the other day. Yes, Iran. They took the American M60. This was the main battle tank before the M1 Abrams was introduced. And they dressed that thing up. They didn't just cover it with all kinds of new armor, but they fitted it with all sorts of new sensors and imaging cameras. They even included some Russian technology, such as these big eyeball-looking things that they have on the front of the tank, just on either side of the main gun. What those are thermal. I don't understand the technology completely, but what I suspect they do is they put out massive amounts of infrared, high infrared, that probably blurs out the heat signature of the tank, this kind of thing. It's a active protection measure. I would think it would blind a heat-sinking missile. But the point is that they had to do that. They're still using the same gun. They probably have no problem producing shells. They certainly could produce plenty of ICBMs and that sort of thing. But why can't we do that? We can. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Well, greed, the American way, defense industry, the military-industrial complex. There's no way they're going to do that. Why are we losing in Ukraine? The Ukrainians did have an incredible military, but apparently all that gear wasn't good enough. What's the difference? Is the Russian gear that much better? Have they actually surpassed us in certain key areas of technology, such as electronic warfare? Actually, yes. Have they surpassed us in rocket technology? Actually, yes. We do not have a hypersonic missile fielded, although the Russians and the Chinese both do, and probably the Iranians will also. So that's not a good look. Not a good look at all. Now, who could you blame for this? Well, I think it's really simple. The government. The main message tonight is going to be about the government. Because, you know, we've been focused on the Mafia, eradicating the Mafia, fighting the Masons, fighting the Satanists, freeing the children, emptying out the bunkers, all that. That's of course always been our goal. But as we got into the fight with the small-time Masons, it worked up. It worked its way up. We've been fighting these guys from the highest levels of the NSA, the cavers, the guys in the actual bunkers, but we never really fought from the bottom up. And now that we're dealing with these people like Gary and what's his face, Red Pill Aries, these low-life types, the Tates of the world, the influencers of the world, we're starting to see that it is all the same thing. Now, before I get into the talking about where we're going with the Masons and the government in this big war, I need to talk a little bit about something that just came out. And this was an accusation that the Russians were basically using social influencers to interfere with the election. Now, it's funny, you know, because obviously Kamal's losing and I don't really care about Trump, but I can just tell you that my hatred for Kamala and what she represents far exceeds my feelings about Donald Trump in any way whatsoever. I feel deja vu, like we're having a Hillary situation again. Well, it turns out they say that RT, Russia Today, was supposedly funneling money to another organization here in the U.S., which was funneling money to influencers, guys like Tim Pool, who we've called out in the past, and some others. Conservative types. Obviously, they do this to divide. But the thing is that, you know, I've never really had a problem with RT, especially back when it was owned by Putin's buddy, the one that was assassinated. I believe in Washington, D.C., they murdered him when he was visiting. But since then, it's been replaced, and the people, he's been replaced, but the people that seem to have been running RT seem to be in league with the same people responsible for me to be banned from international TV. You know, the day that Trump took office, I was banned from Press TV and RT almost immediately. Why would they do that? The thing is, like we talked about last week, we've been trying to teach you guys, especially when we looked at people like Andrew Tate and guys like Bilzerian and some of these other conservatives, Candace Owens even. We've been seeing a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of attacking Jews. And so again, why is this going on? Who's paying for it? We know it's Mossad. We know these guys are ultimately Mossad. It's just like Alex Jones. Call him what you will, but ultimately he's paid by Israel. And why would they do that? What's the difference between Israel and Russia? What is the difference? You know, people point out that, well, you know, I tried to say that there were no Masons in Russia. It turns out that the Masons were banned under the Soviets, but they made their way back in 1990, reestablished themselves, thanks to France, who helped them start it back up. You know who else hated the Masons was Hitler. Hitler banned that, looted all their lodges. And yet, Hitler was set up by the Zionists, by the Chabad, by the Frankists. Is Putin truly a hero? He's still wearing his red string. He sure seems to be fighting against the wickedness. And yet, we just don't know. We can't be sure. You know, I told you that I was digging into this county government and the corruption in the county government in some of these specific cities. And primarily I was looking for connections to Gavin Newsom and his father, William, and the Gettys. And certainly there's a lot of evidence to support this, and it's an ongoing study. But at the same time, I feel that I'm in a situation where we are waiting for the enemy to react before we take the next move. I'm actually discovering now that it is the entire government that is the mafia. Every one of these government agencies, and especially any agency that has any police jurisdiction, law enforcement, court powers, they're corrupt. They're strictly agents of the mafia looking for ways to extract money from us, just like they do when you pay taxes and everything else. It's really quite simple. There's no good guys. There's no white hats. There's no facet of this thing that you call the government that you can trust. And that applies to Trump too. I know that, again, so many people, they want to believe, and yeah, we're going to do everything we can to fight Hillary, Kamala, but it's just not going to matter because the war in Ukraine will be completed. We will lose. And when we do, you're going to see extremely draconian measures taken upon us, exerted upon us, because the government that thing that cannot be saved is going to fall, because we've invested everything in this project to try to destroy the leadership of Russia and cause that country to be splintered. And instead, just like the projection of the Satanists and the Masons, the very same thing is going to happen. It's going to be reflected back, and it will happen to us. This very government, the one that is out there trying to destroy other legitimate governments to steal the land, is going to find itself destroyed and our land stolen. So once again, there's very little that we can do except for this mission. I've just got to remind you guys that you're just going to have to work harder to do this. I want to appreciate all of you that have worked so hard to do the investigation that we performed on the Masons and these various institutions, and I promise you that I will refocus here real soon on that. But like I said, I do need to kind of react. I need to wait and see what the enemy is going to do. You know, we've seen the Masons and everybody trying to act like Christians, and Gary threatening to be destroying Christianity. If anything, the veil is being lifted, and we're going to see a lot of confusing things being said. So, ultimately, the purpose is to cause everyone to become disenchanted. Well, I suspect that that is coming very soon. I'm going to make it short tonight only because I think that, like I said, I really am waiting for more action from the enemy before I decide what direction we need to attack. It's been kind of quiet. But I do want to remind you, a lot of people have been giving me crap about being broke and all this shit. I know that's this Masonic shit. I try to tell these people that that's not a good look. This ego, greed, and envy stuff is really not a good look. But at the same time, I do need to continue to ask people to help out economically if you can, because it helps me to keep you guys involved. We do have an event coming up, and I'm really looking to try to get some funds together to try to make it so that more people can attend this event, more of my inner circle. So if you see me asking you guys to send money to somebody, that's what that's all about. But if you want to send a coin or two to me, a shekel, please use the PayPal, which of course is StephenKelly714@yahoo.com, and do please say it's for friend or family, because otherwise I have to send it back. And I want to thank all of you that do help out, although, someone said, Rob says, say it's so you can buy a bud, say buy cat food, whatever. It's never a good look to ask for money. And I'll tell you, though, I would think things are going to probably change before too long. Anyway, I don't want to dwell on that, but like I said, if you do want to help out, please use the PayPal. And then again, if you do need anything at all whatsoever, help for anything, please not target individual stuff, because there's really not much I can do about that. But if you are under attack and you are dealing with pedophiles, or you're dealing with Mafia, or you're dealing with anything of that nature that you need help with, please, and you need healing too, please send me an email at law17gun@AOL. That's LAW17GUN@AOL.com. All right, and I'll do everything I can to help you. All right. Also, please join my Telegram group if you have not done it. Occupy the Getty /StephenDKelly.com. Also, the Twitter. Please join it. I know it's a funny thing. A lot of people seem to be joining the Telegram group, and yet the numbers don't seem to be going up. Really weird. I can't believe that many people are joining and leaving at the same time. Very strange. Anyway. All right, guys, thank you for your patience. And those of you that are tuned in right now, thank you for sticking around. I know a lot of you will be listening to this thing on the recording, but I'll do my best to come up with more fun content for you right now. But as I said, I'm taking a break a little bit. Okay? Anyway, again, to my followers, thank you so much. To my haters, doesn't matter. All right, guys. Once again, thank you for tuning in. My name is Stephen D. Kelly, and this is the Stephen D. Kelly Show. It's still September 5th. It's now 6:27. Wow, that's a short one. Anyway, thank you all. Good night. God bless. Adios. And goodbye.